for the month of July. I am Michael Perry. I am pleased to be joined by National Master Okay.
Yeah.
So, as far as announcement goes, the club will be closed this weekend due to the Rochester Open, aka the Rochester Chess Festival. That's a Minnesota chess tournament. So you can see the details on that website, or you can go to the castle and there's a link there as well. So kind of a bigger tournament, but if you want to play chess, that's where you don't have to go. But then next week, the following weekend, there will be the fishing tornado at the castle. That's 4 rounds of game 45 plus 15. And then the weekend following is the big tournament, which is Catfish Days. So that's a pretty big one that happens annually. So make sure to check that one out. That one's in Franklin. And you'll probably want to sign up sooner rather than later. It looks like the next deadline is July 15th. So make sure to enter before then so you don't have to pay even more. But yeah, other than that, we'll send it to OK for the games.
All right. Well, let's get started. Let's go to board one and go down the line. So on board one, we've got Jacob Pikus playing against Jordan Tim, and it starts off in Jacob's habitual English opening and quickly transposes into a red key opening advanced variation. I guess another way you could describe it is a reverse Benoni. And although it's a bit strange, because I mean, in the more typical reverse Benoni, black doesn't plays e7 to e5 in one move, but in this case, he's going to do it in two moves. The issue for white is that if he's not playing as aggressively as possible, the loss of a tempo may not harm black's chances. So we'll see how things go. Okay, bishop g5. So he's attacking the knight and figures he might as well exchange it for he might as well exchange his bishop for Jordan's knight, since the bishop often has a difficult time finding a decent spot in these positions. And now knight a3. So this move is relatively standard. White would like to either bring his knight to b5 or more likely to c2, and is going to try and support a pawn advance, either b2 to b4 at some point or e2 to e3, and try to undermine black's center before the rot sets in. Black could ignore it, but it isn't uncommon for black to decide, well, I'm giving up the bishop pair, but I'm spoiling white's queenside pawn structure. And in any case, it's not like white's bishop on g5 has that much of a future in this structure. So it's not like Jordan is sacrificing too much. But one of the pluses for white is that he now has half open b file, which potentially could be a source of counterplay. And that's bold.
Very bold, yeah.
It's consistent in a way with what white is trying to achieve. So white allowed black to get this nice space advantage in the center with his pawns, and now he's trying to undermine that center. And the hope is that as the center disappears, it creates more space and more squares for white's pieces, and hoping to catch black wrong-footed. So let's see how this proceeds.
I don't
And
think
all of a
it's like
sudden,
a very bad move or anything, but I think Jordan definitely handled it well, because there's definitely a little bit of a danger of allowing the pawn to get to f5. So if you allow it to get to f5 and you get knight e4, you might push it all the way to f6. So I think Jordan was
Yes.
right to take it. And now you do have a little bit of a weakness, aka backwards pawn on e2. So I think this wasn't optimal for Jacob, but he can always plant a piece, either his rook, his knight, or his bishop on e4. So it's not that bad.
It's double-edged. So yes, there's a backward pawn on e2, which theoretically is a weakness, but it's only a weakness if black can exploit it. And at the moment, it seems a bit difficult. Meanwhile, black has his own concern on d4 that he needs to hope white can't round up. So we'll see how things go. At the end of the day, it comes down to who can maneuver best in these positions. And already, Jordan is using tactics to try and keep his position together. So his idea with queen e7 is that he's targeting the e3 square. Well, why is that important? Because he anticipates that Jacob might be looking to play bishop takes c6 as he did in the game, and now rook takes d4 isn't working because of queen e3. Uh-oh. So instead, Jacob plays knight b3, putting extra pressure on d4. The problem, though, is that now after c5, it seems like it might be a bit difficult for white to increase the pressure against c5. c5 is his main target. That said, just a cursory look at a position suggests that actually, if you can play queen d2, something like this, this guy becomes hard to defend. And that
Yes.
was probably what Jacob was looking to achieve. So queen d2 happens, first move in the process, and of note, a5 as a way to prevent the queen from landing on a5 doesn't work because it's doubly attacked, and then knight takes a5 follows, and then he just comes back to attack the c5 pawn anyway.
It's always
So
interesting,
instead,
and
yeah,
I just want to bring up this point, not because it's necessarily super applicable to this game, but something you need to consider in chess is when, let's say, like in this, like you mentioned, what made me think of it is when both sides are attacking some element of the other position. So in this case, black's attacking e2 and white's attacking c5. You obviously have to look at what's going to follow. What appeals to me about black, if they were ever to trade off those pawns, is black is closer to white's king, and just has like more of an aggressive position. So
mhm,
you always just need to like look at what happens after. At least that's kind of my mindset. Um,
mhm.
so even after you trade material, obviously you need to keep calculating, but where do the pieces end up, and how can you kind of change matters from there?
Yes, yeah, it's an ongoing conversation, and it's important that you don't miss too many words. Um, at the very least, to carry the or further, you make sure you retune your hearing aids to make sure you're hearing every single word of the chess conversation. It's and of the many strong players in Minnesota, Jordan seems to be very keen on details. So we'll see how he handles this. Now, although I mentioned that a5 might not be doable right away, well, Jordan decided to prove me wrong by playing a5 anyway. So his idea, I suppose, is that at least the queen doesn't get to a5. He gives up a pawn, but the pawn he's giving up um, is reflected in one of these two weaklings. And more importantly, he's going to be able to get his pieces active afterwards. Specifically, um, he's donating a pawn to help bring his rook over to the king side.
Mm-hmm.
And so here he started to try and counterattack against e2. And one thing that's interesting here is that if queen 3 forced queen takes e3 in response, then white would be in pretty bad shape. Fortunately for Jacob, he's not forced to capture on e3, but just to give an idea. So in the game, Jordan played rook f8 to try and put a little bit more pressure on the knight on a5. But if he had tried queen to e3, and if Jacob had said, "Well, I want to reduce the pressure," then this might become an issue. And all of a sudden, the exchange is gone. And if he decides to step back, then this becomes an issue. And so, I mean, the C pawns are still weak, so it's not as if white is just. It's not as if the position is clear, but it might explain why he didn't go for queen e3 right now, because it's not really clearly benefiting him. So here, rook a8 occurs, and the first thing that occurs to me after that move is that c6 might be the next idea. And I don't know whether c6 wasn't working the move before. Let's see. By the way, the idea of c6 is to try and nudge this guy away so that this guy has less. Well, I suppose putting it this way now means that there's two defenders and two attackers. So if c6 occurs, or bishop d7, I think is the way to do it. Yeah, bishop d7, then the knight is in jeopardy. So seeing that, Jacob decides to withdraw his knight. c6 happens anyway, and what happens after rook c5? Just out of curiosity.
I wonder if you can play some rook b8 and sacrifice on b3, because that rook doesn't really have any good moves. It's kind of trapped.
Ah, yeah. So rook here, threatening rook takes b3 with a removal of the guard tactic. Well, let's see. What happens after rook a5, though? That might save his bacon.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Unfortunately, the queen, I guess it wouldn't matter, but yes, that looks good.
So we're looking at rook takes c5. I'm trying to decide what's going on, because at the moment, knight takes d4 is also threatened. Okay, maybe.
Well, the knight takes d4 hangs the rook.
True.
So maybe Jordan here will probably, if this were to happen, which I haven't looked ahead, maybe it does, but Jordan will probably just take on a3, and then he's also threatening a2. So
Yes, and then the knight can't help defend this because it's already overworked to deal with that. So in the end, white doesn't gain material. At least, well, I guess it's one pawn up at the moment, but it's his pieces are very shaky. I mean, I don't think white wants to deal with this business. So, okay, so that's another clever move by Jordan, and Jacob decides to play rook a5, which keeps some more control over the position. And he figures he needs to give a pawn back to help improve his piece coordination. And now the position, so that the rook, white's rook is in a very unpleasant situation here. It's surprising how open the position seems to be, and yet white's rook is severely lacking safe squares.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very odd game in that sense where both rooks were kind of trapped.
Yes. So, okay, he plays rook f3, not rook takes anything. Rook f3, and now queen a7, which protects the c pawn, but also threatens the pawn on a2. Only one way to directly defend it. And now he's going to try to infiltrate using the rook and maybe bring the queen in. However, it looks to me that instead of king f2, maybe he should consider rook here. Actually, that might be bad. Because if here, and rook there, one possibility is king here, and if rook here, now queen here. And between this threat and that threat and that threat, white's position is collapsing.
And I think another possibility is simply maybe this is even better, queen a3. Because if knight b3, we can just take it, I believe, so. It actually leads to checkmate.
Yep. So yeah, so it's funny. This is one of those games where you have to. The position isn't superficial enough for us to make superficial presumptions. King f2. Well, okay. Why doesn't he go active? Well, there's actually serious business going on, and his king needs to get to a safer position. Although I'm not really sure how much safer this particular position is for the king. That bishop on h3 is a menacing force, and now he actually forces him to move the rook to f6 with the idea that queen e7 is attacking the rook, and I, using my crystal ball, well, there's a queen e3 tactic we looked at earlier, and now it's working because of the knight on c1.
Yes.
So, wow, he's in dire straits. So rook c6. Oh, this is a different approach.
Yeah, I was
So,
looking at rook c1. I think this is even better.
so if queen takes, correct?
Yes, lead to checkmate. And not bishop f3, because queen f1.
Yes. Yeah, bishop f3. Well, queen f1 ends up with a piece down ending, so it's still
True.
winning. Although, I guess if bishop f3, then rook here first might make a bit of a difference. But yes, bishop h3, and there doesn't seem to be a legal, reasonable way to prevent checkmate within 2 or 3 moves. So at the moment, so a piece for 2 pawns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not kindly.
And those
Okay, so
pawns
this
aren't
is
going anywhere.
yeah.
You're just
The
trying to
pawns aren't
survive at this point.
the pawns aren't going anywhere. One of the pawns on E2 is already being attacked. Um,
And I think this is
queen.
continuing to show that that F5 move was probably just, wrong.
So it's hard. Let's go back a bit. Um, here. So you can only, I mean, this is a thematic move for white, but it also creates a number of weaknesses. And if you're going to play it, hopefully you've created a backup plan for how you're going to deal with the weaknesses you created in trying to mess up their pawn structure. So after here, I think if bishop c6, so if bishop c6 immediately resulted in the win of at least one pawn, then maybe it's more justified. But so he weakens his king side and then gives up his light square bishop. I think that combination is what makes his position that precarious, because in a number of these variations, it was the bishop at h3 that was the public enemy, so to speak. Yeah, after we get to this position, yes, there's a weakness on c5, but the pawn on c5 also means that that's one less pawn obstructing black's bishop. So, not that black needed it because it was coming out through h3, but the star idea to prevent white from getting any kind of play and to um, catalyze black's play was this a5. I think this is a really, really good idea and move. So the f4 pawn was double-edged. I think that combining it with giving up the bishop was what made his position really precarious if he wasn't immediately getting control
Yeah.
of d4.
Because I was wondering if he did, maybe you mentioned this, but the bishop takes c6, he thought he was going to win that pawn, and maybe he just missed that. Now c5 kind of solidifies everything, so.
Yes, that's very possible. Which is why I think that if he was going to go with that idea, maybe you play knight b3 first, or
I like this more.
yeah, knight b3 first. You don't mind him taking that because if you're exchanging your oogly a3 pawn for his beautiful d4 pawn, I think it's a good trade. Although black has to be careful because g5 at some moment might leave a knight on d4 stranded. It depends on how things go. So say if he plays here immediately, this would be potentially bad. Maybe you play knight here immediately with the idea that if g5, then he can use that intermezzo to escape.
Okay.
Um,
Or maybe
that's
we have
one
to play a
idea.
simple move like king f1.
Yes,
Just
there's
get
that.
the king out of that annoying pin. But yeah, definitely f4 paired with bishop c6. Ever since then, Jordan just started to put the screws on, if you will.
Yes. So let's step away. I should note that. Oh, this is where we are. So this is where we are before we disappear. So we got this, there. Okay. So it's an interesting ending. It's 3 pawns versus 2, and white has pawn on a4 and his pass pawn on c4 aren't as dangerous right now. So I think black's chances are pretty good. And that's not even taken into consideration the huge time advantage. So, all right, let's go to board 2 and see what's going on between Connor and David. So, Connor starts with d4. For some reason, I thought Connor was an e4 guy, but
Yeah, I kind of thought so too. Maybe he's switching it up. But yeah,
mhm.
what's the name? Is this the England or is not
This
the
one,
England? Yeah, what's the name of this opening again?
the d6.
Yeah.
I don't think so. One d6. I don't know that one d6 has a name.
Hmm.
Um, if I were to give it a name, I'd probably call it the amoeba because it can get to any different shape it wants. From D4 D6, you can get a Philidor, you can get a Purix, you can get a Modern, you can get all sorts. You can get what's the wave defense out of this? Say if white plays Knight F3, then Bishop G4 happens. It's very very transpositional.
Huh.
So D6 maybe it has a name, but it can turn into so many different openings that I don't bother classifying it at this moment. So then
Yeah.
after Connor plays e4, now he's back in the realm of his normal e4, which I think is a normal e4 player. And now this can go into Pierre's modern, could maybe even by some degree of weirdness also go into Philidor. Say if since most strong players nowadays only go into the Philidor through the Pierre's move order.
Hmm. Yeah, apparently
Like so.
it's called the Pirk's defense if white plays e4 on move 2. And it's called the old Indian defense if white plays c4 on move 2. So there's
Yes.
options.
Yes. Yeah. So in this position, white could play c4, and the chances are good that it'll become an old Indian. Although black could also decide to play here, and if white plays here, then the difference is if this, then it's likely going to an old Indian. If this, then it's likely going to a king's Indian. The difference between the two being where the bishop goes, where the king's Indian has the bishop playing g6 on g7, and the old Indian usually has the bishop on e7. But yeah, e4 immediately takes it into e4 like openings in most cases. I think that occasionally you'll see g6 here, and black will play something like bishop here and c5, and then that can transpose into Sicilian proxy bind if white plays c4 himself and knight c3. It's again, there's so many transpositions from this position that you have to wait a couple of moves to determine what the opening is going to be.
Yeah.
And now I think black isn't too unhappy with the opening. White doesn't have as much influence in the center. Yes, his knight on d4 is a bit more active on d4 than it is on f3. But because black's c pawn is still alive, there's no guarantee because he can have a happy life on the d4 square. So I guess here we have an illustration of that. And now Connor is hoping to dominate the d5 square. And here he decides to occupy it. Now, probably the reason he chose the c knight to go to d5 is so that in some universe he could play c3 and therefore deny black the d4 square for his knight or bishop. Voila. So here we have interesting decision. Knight takes f6, and here, and the idea is white wants to maintain a piece on d5 after exchanges so that he can still keep pressure on the d6 pawn. So, at least on the surface, it appears that white is doing fairly well here. Black has to figure out how he's going to deal with the weak d pawn. And that's one way. And that's a nice retreat. So basically, if David decides to eliminate his weakness on d5, then there's a unpleasant surprise waiting for him after e5, and he loses a piece or loses his king. So queen d3 was a pretty nice retreat. David likely saw that and decides to kick the queen off of d3. Unfortunately for David, he still can't get d5 in because of e5.
Yeah,
And the
bishop's
bishop,
gonna be trapped.
yep.
Although,
So,
yeah, true.
so David prepares it with rook e8, so there's a vis-a-vis against white's queen. And Connor responds with rook d1, putting pressure against d6. And every move has some poison to it. So now there's a threat of bishop b6. And the knight defends, and so he's covered the threat, but the knight is further away from the center, which means that he would prefer to be somewhere else in most cases. Okay. So David feels he has a relatively safe position, and feels he has the time to just keep everything defended. Let's see if Connor, who often doesn't just sit still, if he finds a way to sharpen the position. That's the start. Okay.
Yeah, it basically has their pieces where they want, so it makes sense to move some pawns as long as you're not weakening anything too greatly.
Yes. Yeah, this is oh, that's mean-spirited. So he wants to eliminate Black's most useful piece on the board right now, which after the exchange reveals weaknesses on h6 and g6, among other dark squares. So a lot of thought has to be given here. David decides to capture, and so the pressure on d6 continues. Of course, there is a plus side for Black in that maybe now his knight can go to b6 without as much concern, but keeping the pawn on d6 alive might be higher priority.
Yeah, and we'll always have ideas of playing. It's tougher now, but of playing e5 and just coming in with the queen to b7 and taking all of the pawns on the light squares. So definitely preferable for Connor.
A4. giving black the opportunity to dirty his queenside pawn structure. And queen d2. So there's an extra attack being threatened against the knight on b6. But more importantly, white is keeping black from getting the kind of counterplay they want. Let's see. Oh, that's a discovered attack against the knight, which David responds to. Okay, so this is the position here. David has 17 and a half minutes left compared to Connor with 52. Just peeking at the current status of the Jacob versus Jordan game, Jacob has a minute and 1 second left compared to an hour and 26 minutes of time for Jordan, not including increment. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So let's go on to board 3. I think we're going a bit slower than usual. Okay, so this is Thomas versus Eddie.
Classic Sicilian.
Yep. Wow. Straight up dragon. This is not an opening for the faint of heart, in my understanding of how chess works.
Yeah.
And Thomas plays bishop e2, which, if I were to play white against the dragon, would probably be my preference in terms of the character of the game. However, most dragon aficionados look at bishop e2 and do either of two things. They either let a very heartfelt guffaw, or they smile wryly because they figure it's not challenging. Now, I don't know if that's true. I mean, it's definitely not as challenging as the Yugoslav attack and stuff like that, and it doesn't have the same effect it used to have back in the 30s and 40s. But bishop e2 does have something to go for it, in that white isn't burning his bridges the way he does in the Yugoslav attack. On the other hand, though, because of that, maybe, well, as a side effect of not committing to the opposite side castling, if white does get an advantage, it's usually very small. Yeah, that was foreseeable. In this position, so here, after this, white has a bit of a difficult decision to make because the knight's coming to c4, and there isn't an easy way to prevent it from getting there. On the other hand, the rook on a1 doesn't necessarily want to be completely shunted out of the game by something like bishop c1. That said, b3 immediately is not available because the knight on c3 hangs. So already Eddie is creating some problems for Thomas. After bishop g1, now knight c4. Now, again, there doesn't seem to be a good way to, a really great way to deal with it. Maybe b3 may just hold things together. In any case, he decides to go with this, and the downside of that is this sequence. And in terms of pawn structure, probably a bit even. But in terms of total piece activity, Black is way far behind at this point. So
Doesn't look good. I don't know how you're saving the piece. Oh, it's a pawn. Didn't see
yeah,
the queen there.
yeah. So that's that's why I was kind of a bit surprised. So okay, Queen A7. So they're material equal. Black's pieces are kind of dancing in the air, but the pieces that are out do seem active enough. Let's see how this completes. Queen B8
Who
and
do you prefer here?
um
Or do you not really have a
hmm.
preference? I prefer
I'm
white
looking
just
at
because
it.
of those A and C pawns. And because they're the
Yeah,
same
yeah,
color as my bishop. It's easier to play, and I'm always going to be partial to the pass pawn.
yeah. I think well, there are two pass pawns. Touche.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, I think I'd prefer to be white, but I don't see a clear sequence of moves. I mean, you exchange queens, the rook comes over. The pawns are strong in that they're passed, but they're also weak because they're isolated and they're
Yeah.
a bit further back. So I would still give white the nod, but I think it'll take some hard work to bring home the bacon.
My
All
hope for
right.
that game is that the major pieces get exchanged and we're
Mm-hmm.
left with three minor pieces each, because you don't see too many endgames like that, and that's where you get the fun
No,
bishop and knight checkmates and just strange stuff like that. And if you can hope,
fingers crossed.
yeah.
So let's see. Let's see. Drew. Oh, Drew made quick work of. Well, okay, it wasn't quick. It was quick in terms of um, time, not quick in terms of moves. So let's see what happened here. Sicilian and Robert plays C4. Um,
Basically
it's a way of
giving up the
framing it.
dark squares for the entire game.
Yes. So he's that's okay. It's a a risk many a white player will try, figuring that their bind on d5 and the light squares at the center makes up for it. I think the jury's still out on that concept. But yeah, that's explains here. And now we have b4, which is just
I think he's played this before. This looks familiar. I think he's played this.
okay.
The thing is
You're
it doesn't
right.
even win a pawn right away, right? Because D4 you can't take twice. Well, once because of the fork. So
Yeah, this is a questionable decision. Oh, we'll see how it goes. So a3. Wow, that's an interesting way to develop the bishop. Huh. I don't know. Let me go back a bit. I'm trying to understand. Oh, maybe the idea is just to leave the knight as an annoyance. I don't know. This seems okay. Well, 0-0 happened. Queenie won. Okay, so now Drew decides the knight on g5 might have overstayed its welcome. I think he's planning to play h6 next. Huh. So this is an interesting moment. Can you force the queens off the board, or at least convince White's queen to go deeper into the games? With that, well, it seems that worked. Oh,
Yeah, I think that's why he played knight h5, just so we could get those doubled pawns. Otherwise, knight h5 doesn't make much sense because white couldn't play knight d5 anyways.
mm-hmm. No,
Not
this is
really.
actually very good on Drew's part, because after the exchange of that pair of minor pieces, um, the knight is boss on f4, like
Yes.
complete boss, like final boss. Um,
Although,
like,
oh yeah, true. Never mind. That's too late. Yeah.
uh, with a small threat of winning a pawn, if White ignores things on the king side and plays something random on the queen side, the knight takes h3, just wins a pawn. And in addition, queen takes h3. Sorry, so say we play something ridiculous like this, then we could even do this and then cycle this guy back through there.
But might as well just take the bishop there.
Yes. So now here, this is interesting. And again, rook f3 was played, which didn't really change anything materially. And 94 was the response. And 94, I think, is upping the ante to try and put maximum pressure on the position. And I don't see how the rook escapes while leaving. Yeah, there's no other safe move. So okay, rook here, knight takes h1, rook takes g3, knight there.
You just up 2 pawns.
Yep. And then we're just going to be watching him rolling. Wow. It's so interesting watching folks exchange advantages. Like rather than like holding on to the one advantage for dear life, folks are willing to give up the one advantage to get another advantage, kind of like trading.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That pawn looks dangerous, but the king is in the square. Actually, maybe this creates more chances than we give it credit for. Hmm. Huh. Why is this? Okay, it's over. All right, I don't know. I was hallucinating.
No, it
That's
looked a
was
little
some way.
tricky, but
Huh?
yeah, it did look a little tricky.
Yeah. I was hallucinating. There's no defense. Drew Drew got the job done quite nicely. All right. So that's that one gone. So let's look at Norman versus Shreva Binu. Do you know who this player is? Shreya. Is it Shreya? Shreya.
Yeah, I don't, but I'm about to.
Okay, I guess we'll find out who the person is, chess wise anyway. Um, so we've got Spanish opening, exchange variation, the old style with d4 immediately. So um, 0-0. So this is how it was played back in the days of the Giants, Lasker, Capablanca, the rest. But later on, it was found that 0-0 was probably a better move to play, more flexible for white.
So it looks like Shreya Binu, she played her first tournament in 2024. She played a lot in 2025, played a good amount this year so far, and she is rated 950.
Okay. Yeah, that's one side effect of having the king in the center. It can fall victim to these funny pins. And so, I mean, it's already probably in bad shape, but e5 looked active, but was actually compromising um, her position because the e5 pawn is going into enemy territory and is currently not defended. I mean, it's not attacked either, but it's not defended at the moment because the knight that would seem to be defending it is currently pinned against the king. So then after knight d7, we have a crisis for white. How do you defend that pawn? Well, you could try bishop f4, but that now opens up takes one more barrier along the e file. So then bishop d6, pin it and win it. I think we were able to say that last week as well. And after that, there's just a pawn gone. Now, oh, that's even meaner spirited. So there's a discovery check. Knight takes b2.
Yeah, she had to take on d6 first with check.
Yes. So in this position, after this was mandatory, and then recapture on e3. Although, okay, she'll have a very weak pawn structure, but a weak pawn structure is better than being down a piece or an extra piece. So after this, another pin it and win it situation. And this is actually kind of important to note. I suppose f takes e4 might have been legal, but it's not as good. The idea is when you can, you want to keep your pawns as well aligned as possible. And if you capture on e4, then this guy is separated from his mates over here.
Yeah.
So rook e4 keeps them together, but in addition, also potentially allows the rook to become more active. Now in this position, I'm wondering if g4 might be um, kind of like, I don't know, it's not saving her position, but it's kind of like, I don't know, a gnat bite. The problem, of course, is it doesn't work because of rook here, and then you just end up losing the pawn after this. Or if you go here, then maybe, oh, actually, this is winning a pawn as well because of discovered check. So, so her position's pretty bad. Pretty bad. It's
Yeah,
an
I was looking
interesting
at that
checkmate.
checkmate earlier. It's something you got to watch out for. I think
Yes.
like you played, you got to play G3 or G4 just to provide that extra square for the king. But she'll definitely have learned from this game.
Yes. Yes, you should. All right. Well, let's see. Dipankar is playing Sanjeev, and this game starts off as a what is it called? This thing, this bishop g5, maybe Tatakova. It's kind of
Yeah,
like a Tory against d4 d5, which can transpose into normal Tory. I suppose it's a hybrid between the Tory and the Trumpowski.
hmm,
So everybody's developing pretty decently. And now Black, who I presume is the higher rated player, um, needs to spice things up a little bit.
hmm.
Wow. Is that working? Hmm. Okay.
Shouldn't have been allowed.
Yeah.
Usually, it's not a good idea to have the opposing queen on h8.
To invite the queen in. Yeah, this is
Yeah,
looking pretty harsh.
yeah, it's
So
not good for Black.
well, I guess we'll see. Something must have happened of major interest because, huh?
Yeah, something feels off about this game.
Yes.
I don't know how you blunder bishop f5 as a. I mean, Shanjeev, I think, is maybe 1350 at the lowest.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
Yeah, let's go back a bit here. What happened? So here. How is this even working? I'm kind of. Oh, is there going to be a discovery with d4 at some moment? I just noticed that the rook and bishop are aligned against g2. So maybe Dipankar, because it seems to me like Dipankar is in fairly bad shape here.
Yeah, I would agree.
Aha. So
But that
now the
doesn't do
idea is,
anything.
huh?
I said, yeah, but that doesn't do anything.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything. So I'm trying to figure out how this game ends here as 0-1.
This must be a error. I'm assuming Sanjeev won, but
Yeah, it seems rather strange, but okay, well, we'll see. We'll check in later. So this is another name that isn't familiar to me. Han Dahansika Sasikumar versus Lucas Alzen. I haven't seen Lucas's name in a while, but I think we haven't really been showing the games from the um, second section as often in recent times. All right, let's go back to the top. Or actually, let's see if we have moves there. So, Great Clifton. Oh, well, it says it's 1-0. Let's see how we got there. So we got an English reverse Sicilian, or it was a reverse Sicilian. I guess I'm not sure what it is now. Okay, so I've got an IQP position for black.
so Dansiki, I hope I'm saying her name right. She looks like she started playing in 2024 as well,
Oh,
but just
wow.
briefly, and then she's played about 70 games in both 2025 and 2026 already. So definitely a
Okay.
pretty active player. She has a 61% win rate this year, which is quite good. She's
Yes.
1200 and she is number 41 for girls age 9. So pretty good player.
Oh, no. So we need to be on guard because I'm guessing she'll probably be trying to terrorize us in a few years.
Yes.
So what's going on here? So knight takes pawn, knight takes knight. Did he just give up a piece
Yeah, it looks like
for
it.
a pawn? Oh, I suppose not, because there's this e4 coming up. That's actually pretty clever. And there's no way to, let's see, so this actually might have been a well-timed tactic then. Well-planned tactic, I should say. Because the piece is going to be returned pretty quickly. Okay.
Yeah, so white's just up a pawn now.
Yep.
That seemed a little careless to allow the bishop to
Yeah.
get exchanged for the knight.
I mean, on the other hand, maybe white has tried to claim that, well, you've done what you need to do or what you thought you needed to do, and now we have bishop of opposite colors, which might favor me if I'm the one with the attack. It does seem to me rather strange and maybe compliant, but okay. So it looks like Lucas is finding a way to consolidate the position. very nice, I think. Although there might be an intermezzo here with bishop takes e3. I don't know if that deserves any.
Yeah,
Let's
so
see.
bishop takes e3, probably bishop b7.
Maybe this first.
Oh, and then yeah, if king h6, then bishop g8.
Yeah, yeah. And then if here, then maybe well, I guess we could either do rook c6, rook a6, or there might even be um
Yeah, I think king h6 is better. We can't let them get the a pawn.
yeah.
Because if bishop g8, it's okay to let them spend time trying to win that guy.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the board seems to have switched on us somehow.
Oh no, really?
Yeah, this is a completely different game now. Okay, so he must be doing his thing of entering into games manually. So let's go back to two games we haven't seen the completion of. Oh, what happened here? Did we see the finish to this? No, we didn't. So let's see. When we left here, we were here. And the rook was finding itself in a bit of a quagmire. And then so it's just a piece down for no compensation. And then the rook is still the boss. But this actually isn't as trivial as it might seem, although, I mean, a player of Jordan's caliber should be able to deal with this. But um, Black has a piece up. White has a pass pawn. It's important not to let that pass pawn get too excited. And
There it
now it's
goes.
over.
Yeah, I hate to say it for Jacob, but it felt like as early on as f4 coupled with bishop c6, and he was always on the back foot. He probably had
Yes.
chances to save the game, but the time pressure he got in and Jordan just playing right up his alley and an attacking style was made it very difficult for him.
Yes. Yeah, that was a tough loss for Jacob. Um, this one is still ongoing. Connor versus David, or I guess correctly, David versus it is Connor versus David. Sorry, trying to confuse myself. So let's go back to where we left this game. Okay, so yeah, we left around here, where Black seemed to be trying to build for d5, and White seemed to be using tactics to help prevent it.
Yeah, and something I was going to mention back when we were looking at this position was, and even earlier on was, I was wondering if Black could try to play a5 and b4 just to kind of get some of their own counterplay instead of always being a little bit passive. It's not as appealing now,
Yes.
but maybe, yeah, like c5 was really, sorry, c4, and it made it much more difficult. But even earlier on, maybe like around move 12, somewhere around in there, I thought, Yeah, maybe after pieces got exchanged on d5. It would have been interesting to
Here.
just go ahead. Yeah, this is where I was thinking. Maybe just go ahead
Mm-hmm.
and play b4 because you take advantage of the fact your bishop's on f6 and eyeing those pawns anyway. So it's
True.
it is double edged because you're pushing your pawns. It's going to be easier for white to attack them naturally, but you're also
Yeah.
opening up the line for your bishop. So this would have been an alternate way to play. I don't know how much time he spent here. Maybe that would help us figure out how much he actually thought about it.
So here he spent less than a minute.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, why am I going this much? Okay, so there we go. Yeah, a few seconds. Well, counting the 30-second increment, I suppose, in that. But yeah, this was, he didn't spend too much time on it. And it's still not trivial, right? How's the rook getting in? How are you increasing pressure against him to convince him to make a mistake? There's quite a bit of maneuvering going on here.
Yeah. It doesn't surprise me because before we had stopped looking at this game earlier, it looked like White was going to have a long time trying to win this game if they could win it at all.
Yes.
Which I'm not sure what's going on here. Kind of crazy.
Yeah. This is an officially weird position. So,
He
of
might,
course, yeah.
sorry, he might be over pushing a bit. That's all I'll say. But go ahead.
Mm-hmm. That's my feeling as well. Is it's all nice to be aggressive when you can be, but um, Black isn't playing White's game and is threatening a checkmate based on the back rank and things. So it's I don't know, it looks pretty tough. We'll see how that finishes. We've got Eddie versus Thomas, and when we left, we had that. Okay. I think this is where we left off because we're like surprised that he just gave up a pawn. Ouch. Every move by Eddie was a threat for the last several moves. Okay. So I probably might have a bit of a preference for White. It's not a huge preference, but hmm. What are your thoughts?
Not too much has changed from my opinion from earlier. I still slightly prefer White.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's a bit tricky to see though. White can only push their pawns so far before Black will shut them down and ask questions. But yeah, it's like Black's pass pawn, which is only the e pawn, obviously, is blockaded right now. So I was debating
Yeah.
whether you want to play bishop d4 just to kind of maybe trade off bishops, kind of pin the knight in a sense, but then we do lose coverage of the e3 square. So our bishop's probably pretty well placed right now on g1.
Don't you want? Yes. You gotta love these positions where the bishop is best developed as if it was preparing for the next game on the back rank.
I do like this from Eddie though, pushing his h pawn. This is making me like black's position more because white doesn't want to play h3, because he is a little cramped. That's the downside of having a g1 bishop protecting your king and your king in the corner. And he doesn't want
Yeah.
black to play h3. So, I'm immediately switching my stance and preferring, maybe not preferring black, but at least equal.
Yeah, we'll see how this one turns out. I guess we only have these two games left, right? I mean, well, okay, let me see if we have stuff from the other sections that isn't being actively edited at the moment.
You
That
mean tampered with?
yes. Hey, I'm trying to be nice here.
The evidence is being tampered with now. But yes, board eight's the where we left off.
Uh, okay, so let's go here. Oh, that's an interesting approach. C5 immediately. Wow. What happened in this position?
Hmm.
Oh, okay. I was wondering. Well, that's pretty imaginative by Drake Clifton. The pseudo sacrifice of a piece. Queen is just gyrating all over the place. And the knight on a4 is definitely one of those knights on the rim that appear a bit dim. Not
Yeah.
that white is that you're losing immediately, but it does seem too far disconnected from the rest of the forces. F3. Yikes. Oh,
There's some good pieces.
bang. Oh, no. Yeah, this is mean. So he has to play king. So she, Jules, has to play king of one, otherwise she loses her queen. I guess, yeah, that's the only legal move that doesn't lose a queen. So,
That was unnecessary. Just win the rook.
oh man, well, it's I guess the theme is the more the merrier. Oh, that's cold. Now the queen's going to die an ignominious death. And Jules decided to resign here. So I think C5 is a thing that early, and Jules is usually pretty knowledgeable, typically more knowledgeable than I am in these early night C3 openings. But she's shown pretty decent, um, pretty decent competence in playing the opening, and then might sometimes get a bit off in the um, middle game. But these all looked normal. I don't know if DC5, I guess, is also fairly normal. I wonder if there's an argument for e4 or knight ge2 and then e4, knight f3 and then e4, but maybe it didn't make too much of a difference because this seems to. At the end of the day, I think maybe she doesn't spend the time to capture the pawn on a7. I think that might
Yes.
be the point things start to go awry. That after queen a7, her pieces are just not well coordinated, besides being less well developed than the Drake. Almost has like a reverse Benoni, Benko Gambit feel to it. So, yeah, I don't know what it is. It must be the weather or something. We're both on the yawns today. And
Yeah.
it's not because the games are boring either. But
No. Games are never boring.
well, let's see. All right, let's see. What else do we have? Haven't I think we? Well, yeah, we did see Nanika a couple weeks ago. Okay, this is Jeremy versus Nanika Tudika, and start off with the English, reverse Sicilian. Wait a second, that looks like we've seen that game before. Yeah, we have. We've seen this opening. I don't know which game it was connected to, so I don't know whether this is the actual game or not. Okay, well, it's a game. We'll take a look and see what we can learn from it. Okay, so we've got a standard, well, we'll say standard, but we've got an IQP position.
Yeah, we have looked at this game.
Yeah, I thought it looked familiar.
This was the temporary piece sacrifice on
yes.
d5 and the pin and the opposite colored bishop endgame. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yes, so we've seen.
What we haven't seen, it looks like on board 10, Nathan had a nice game against Roger Hale.
Let's take a look at that. Oh, these tricky wing gambit people. Okay. Roger plays one of the more solid approaches against the wing gambit, the French wing gambit. And the idea kind of is by playing c4, you prevent a black pawn from getting to d4. Because if they go d4, they go d3, you're going to capture on d3 anyway. And so one of white's trumps in these sort of positions is he's getting faster development. And he's trying to maintain solid control over the d4 square. So with the way things have gone, he doesn't have that solid control over d4. And already Roger is trying to blow up the center completely with f6. And then sort of kind of changes his mind. So maybe it's not working from a time standpoint, but yeah, maybe play knight c6. Let's get one more piece developed as a possibility. But yeah, now with the center stabilized, white can afford to play moves like g4, or at least think about them.
Trouble.
Brutal. So the rook's going, maybe the knight's going as well. In fact, yes, the knight is Well, okay. Queen is attacking a1.
Yeah, I think Nate's just playing a pretty pristine game.
Yeah, yeah,
A double checkmate
oh,
with the three minor pieces doing the dirty work. That's yeah.
yeah.
I
And
do
he's
like
down the
this.
queen for knight.
I do like this theme though. I think Robert could learn something from this game. Nathan kind
Oh,
of did some win gambits just like Robert, except they weren't quite as dubious. Not to say B4 is the best move in that variation of the French, but it's definitely an option. And then I also did like G4, so I think just a smooth game from Nate and Roger. Yeah, shouldn't have taken
yeah,
both pawns probably.
yes, yes. There's always, I remember the first time I saw a game where black took everything on offer in a Danish gambit. And I think the game was over before move 20. And I thought, how can this be? He's how many pawns behind? How can white win that game? And then the author, reading my thoughts ahead of time, said, we must remember, checkmate ends the game. Not pawn
Mm,
advantages, not weak squares, checkmate. So,
yeah.
yeah. So let's see, we got Srijan playing against Nate Hoover, so that must be the second in his simul.
Yes.
Oh, Nate. Now, I think this has a name. I don't know what it is. Actually, it looks like it's like almost transposing within the BDG realm, Black Bar Demar. I don't know if it's exactly that, but it seems this you could get this from a Black Bar Demar. So, say here, 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 and if Black plays here, now we're in the game position. So, speaking of giving up pawns for the sake of development, this is an important moment. So, they've actually transposed into a line I know um, in the Black Deemer via the Scandi, and Black is playing C6, which I think is the Ziegler defense. And so at this moment, 95 isn't just an airy move to put pressure on Black's position, but with no specific purpose. He actually has a threat. If you play like knight d7 to challenge the knight on e5, bank, crash, wallop, taking advantage of the pins. So if here, then here. I think we had a game that featured something like this before, some many weeks ago, I think. But anyway, that's the reason why Srijan plays bishop g6, so he doesn't have to deal with that annoyance. And then g4 and bishop c2. I remember looking at this years ago. I can't remember my analysis of it, but I remember thinking that at the end of the day, with best play, it's unclear, but it's definitely worth a shot if you really need to win in this position. And I would imagine that it took Nate by surprise. I don't think he was expecting that.
Yeah, probably. So can white take or is that just bad?
So the idea is if here, then queen takes check,
And
and
then you're
so
just
he's
down. I
getting
guess you're
his,
just down three pawns. So you get some
yeah,
counterplay, but is that probably just bad for black? I mean,
Yes,
white.
for white, yes. It's not. I don't think white gets enough compensation. Yeah, black's pieces are very much behind the development, but his pawn structure is solid enough to withstand a blow, and he always has the right to give back some material if things get too hectic.
Okay.
So, yeah. And I don't know if it's exactly this position because I think in the position I was thinking of, maybe after Queen D2, White still has this G5 idea, and but yeah, it might be a slightly different position because I don't remember that one being as obviously winning for Black if the bishop was taken. In any case, that was a really nice find by Srijan, and Bishop B4 attacking the knight on C3 while preparing for potential castling. And this is where things kind of. So in this position here, I was thinking maybe H6 to be played because one of the things that Black is having to deal with is G5. And if G5 happens, then that means that the pressure over here might count for something. And so maybe at this moment might be the chance for Black to look for an improvement. Maybe even knight d7. I don't know. Knight d7 might be a thing to consider. So this knight to d7. Oh, but that allows this to happen because we're shielding the d pawn. So, huh. So then maybe h6. Just play h6. If they're going to play g5 and open up the h file, that's fine. Black will take a move or so to. He's given his bishop a cubby hole on h7 potentially, and given enough time, he might try to make a break for the queen side with his king. So in the game, this was played. Oh, wait a second. So if queen takes c2, so let's see what happens after queen takes c2. Oh, this guy falls again. Okay. So queen f4 was played, and now Black is able to escape the center, maybe. Oh, it's bold. Not yet sure if it's beautiful, but it's definitely bold. So bishop, queen d4, check.
Yeah, queen c4. So white's down a minor piece and 2 pawns at this point.
Yeah. How in
And
the
I'm
heck
not.
did this finish as a draw?
Yeah, and knight takes e4 doesn't do anything. Knight h6 obviously doesn't do anything because the bishop backwards defends. It's a bit
Yeah.
odd.
This is a crazy position. So, hold on. So we get here and go there. E5. Oh, so he's threatening to capture the knight on f7, but might have missed. Well, knight takes e5 isn't really doable either, I don't think. But this is doable. Um,
Well, that sound doesn't seem. Oh, wait.
this
Wait.
is a
I'm still a bit confused.
Yeah, I'm confused as well. I'm trying to figure this one out. So
Yeah, queen h4
yeah,
doesn't make
exactly.
much sense. So you
No.
lost a piece, but then you played g6.
So going into this position, we're 2 pawns down. I mean, there's a piece after this.
And we
How
were
is
a
this
piece
even
down. Now we're
working?
2 pieces and 2 pawns down.
Yeah.
So 8 points in material. This has to be a DGT error. Unless we get a tremendous blunder from Srijan. Oh
He did.
no.
He allowed a
Oh
special.
no. Thanks to the
Okay.
rook, you can't bring the bishop back.
Yes. Oh wow, that was an unexpected finish for sure. Dang. Srijan was about to score a major upset, I think.
Yeah.
Oh well, he'll get another chance. He's been playing very good, fairly good chess in the last several months. So I think did we see the end of this one?
Well, which one is that? Oh,
This is
David versus. No, we didn't. I looked through the games. There were three we hadn't looked through. It was this one, like um Eddie, of course, and then I wasn't sure whether we had seen the end of Don Sika versus Lucas Alzen. But
I
let's
don't
take a look at
think
this one
so.
first, and then just go on from
Yes.
there.
So I think we stopped around here,
Hmm.
if I remember properly. And then
Yeah,
this
and we were
T5
saying it was
happens.
looking better for black, and white might have over Pershed.
Yes. And this is an interesting decision by David. Now, he's really on time, so I don't think he would have had enough time to fully gauge all what's going on. But after that exchange of queens, now black is, I think, significantly worse. And then he gives up another pawn. Oh, my bad. He gives up a whole piece. Oh, poor David. Yeah, I think he just lost lost the thread in time trouble.
Yeah, it all went downhill in the span of a couple moves.
Yeah, crazy, eh?
Yeah. Well, Connor will take it. There is a benefit to playing quickly. If you can
Yes.
play good moves, but play them quicker than your opponent, obviously you don't have a likelier chance of winning.
Yeah. Now, when we left, did we have the queens already been exchanged in this one?
I don't think so. I was hoping for it, but no.
Okay, so this is where we are here. So I guess C4, queen there, right there. Knight B5.
Yeah, so he did get his pawn to h3. Hmm.
Okay. So queen is given an exit route if it needs it and decides to take it.
Probably good for Eddie there. Didn't the queen? His queen wasn't as threatening as Black's was.
Yes.
Sorry, Thomas, for as white probably wanted to really trade queens.
Well, this position
Move, Eddie,
is
move.
still, I was to say, this position is still very, I think bishop e3 might be an idea. Um, threatening knight c7 while try to keep um, black's knight at bay.
Yeah.
Hmm. Well, at least
think-
the game is more balanced from a time management standpoint. I mean, it's not, Eddie, of course, is still lower on time, but this is not a 30, 40-minute advantage for
Yes.
Eddie's opponent.
Makes it more interesting for us and for the viewers.
Yes.
That's a big decision. So he goes c5 and then Eddie plays knight e5.
So I think Eddie's in trouble because probably c6 is happening next move.
Yes. And I mean, for Eddie, you would love to just play f5, f4, f3. There's a clear route. You know, it's time for you to move
Yes.
your pawns, but will you be quick enough? That's the question.
Mm-hmm. That is the question. It's okay. Can you hold the fort for a few minutes? I'll be right back.
Yes.
Okay.
So I don't have the controls, but I'm the only other game, like I had mentioned earlier, that is still ongoing is Dipankar Ghosh versus Sanjeev. And that one, see if I can give a status report on it. Because I don't think we had. Oh wait, no, that wasn't the game. That was the likely DGT error. Yeah. So Danshika won this one. It was a rook end game, but she was just up multiple pawns. So she traded off one set of rooks. I know you can't see this. Sorry about that. But yeah, she was just up 3 pawns in a rook end game, and she converted. Looks like pretty nicely. So good win for Donchika there. I think Lucas Alzen is around 1,200, maybe a little less. So about her rating. So yeah, that leaves just this game, Eddie versus Thomas. Both players under 3 minutes now. Eddie did just get his pawn closer to promotion, so that should be progress. Currently, the rook's being attacked on c2, of course. And yeah, I don't know. I probably prefer black because I don't know.
Oh,
It's tough to say.
what happened here?
Yeah, so he was able to exchange off one of the minor sets of pieces here. So knight
Huh.
d3, and Thomas decided to take that knight, which I guess makes some sense because the bishop is kind of blocked out right now.
Wow. All of a sudden, his position, him being Thomas's position, is critical because if he plays rook d2, then bishop c4 attacks the knight, which is defending the bishop. Huh. Okay, so he plays rook c1, and at the least there's
Wait a
d2.
second. Isn't this a
There's
forced win? Or am I seeing so what if d2, the only move
yeah,
is rook d1, right? Well, okay, not the only move, but you have to keep your rook on the first rank.
yes. So let's say we play, I don't know,
Rook d,
here.
I mean, yeah, you're just losing everything here. Because bishop d5 is coming in, then a fork the important pass pawn and the king. Also, once the rook leaves the c file, which it'll be forced to after d2. Then you can play bishop c4, another overload tactic.
Yeah.
So I think Thomas might have just blundered
Collapsed.
it all away. Yeah.
So how did this get here? So we went like this, and then here, and there. Okay. Oh, got it. So in this position, maybe he has to play bishop e3. I mean, he gives up a pawn. Well, these takes care of this knight f4. Oh, but now there's knight here. That knight is Eddie's knight. Wow. So then at this moment, are things already really dire?
You know what? I think so. Just because. Oh, and there's that fork. Oh, yes, I missed it. 91.
Yeah.
It's rare you see a knight fork on the back rank.
Yes. So, yikes.
Yeah, yikes is right.
Oh dear.
He played bishop h6, which is probably still good enough. Not the move I was expecting, but I think he all of a sudden had a lot of good moves.
So now it's a question mark. Is it even possible to save this one? So
So bishop d5. Okay, I don't know why he didn't play bishop d5, but d2 is what we're left with.
I think he's intending to play bishop g4 next and just with the rook for the pawn. And might have calculated that the pawn on c6 isn't promoting as quickly. I don't see why. I think my native impulse would be to take that pawn on c6 off the board as quickly as possible, but then you then lose your d3 pawn. So Eddie's idea seems to have some merit.
So humor me for a moment. So bishop g4. Oh wait, sorry, it's white's move. So
Choice move,
my
yeah.
plan was c7.
Okay. So if c7, then yeah. So let's say bishop g4 happens. Well, I guess it's knight d6 at some moment that we need to consider.
Knight d6. I was thinking bishop b8.
Okay. So so let's say bishop g4 happens.
Yeah, I'm not sure about this, Freddie, because I'm seeing ways for white to still make matters complicated. This might still be winning, but bishop b8 and you can't take the rook yet. Um,
Yep.
I mean, you can play rook a2. You can win a pawn, but I think you could have won a piece if he had just played bishop d5 earlier.
Yeah. So in this position here, like this.
Yeah, like or even before bishop h6. Well, like or like d2 instead. Yeah, you have to drive the rook off the c file. But like d2, rook d1 or rook b1 or rook. I mean, yeah, you really only have to keep the rook on the first. So I don't know how you're saving this as white.
I do not see a path for saving the position as white. Well, okay, let's look more seriously here. Let's say so if here, okay, it's white's move. Let's say bishop here. I think I don't know. I would be happy to play this. kind of here. Well, that's not even doing anything, is it?
Oh wait, there is. I did miss that. Wait a sec. That's doing something. Maybe that's what he saw. I mean, you do go up 2 pawns though, so.
Yes.
But yeah, this is the line though. I think knight d4 is the only saving grace. And then you.
Oh, but then you go here, you win a piece.
Oh yeah, duh, in between move. Yes, nice. Bishop a4.
Yes.
Maybe he missed bishop a4 because if you don't see bishop a4, you go up a couple pawns, but you're not up to piece. Your past pawn's
Yeah.
blockaded. Maybe he saw something like that. Because bishop h6, the line we currently have, if we go back to the live position, is still favorable, of course, but I'm not seeing like after
Even in this
um
position, I think this seems to
yeah,
be
it should still work.
doing the trick. You go here, you go here, and again, if he tries this, bishop there, and things are pretty sad for Thomas there. So let's go back to the live game. Oh no. This actually happened in the game. Apparently. Well, let me see. Back to live. Let me just check though. Back to live. So this is a live position.
Yeah.
Oh, I need to put. Okay, so this is how. So the game itself, after here and there, then Thomas played c7. It seems. Oh, this is. I don't know. Maybe this is the actual game.
Yeah. So at the end
And
of the day,
someone was given 0 zeros for time. So I don't know if Thomas lost on time.
I doubt it. But at the end of the day, Thomas is still down a pawn.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, this both players really blundered it. Thomas blundered away the game in a sense, and Eddie blundered it. Maybe not to a draw, but now it's going to be very. I mean, maybe I'm speaking too soon, but difficult.
Mm-hmm. So
So
94. Oh, but then he has rook c1, doesn't he?
yeah, so maybe 92 bishop, 92 bishop b5, king f2.
Hmm.
So now it does say Eddie won, but this doesn't make sense.
Yeah, if you won based on time, then the position doesn't matter, right? The
Yeah,
question is, did he win on time?
possible,
Yeah,
but
this is a difficult position to defend, even if you have a lot of time on the board. On the clock, I mean to say. Hmm. Yeah, what's the knight doing with its life?
I guess the trick is the winning formula / reorganization is to get your light squared bishop as black to a4 to the queening square, because you obviously can't get it to g4 anymore. So then to do that, you need to move your rook, but you need to keep your rook on the c file to stop the promotion square.
You know
So if
something
like
I
90,
missed?
yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead.
Well, we'll go. We'll go back. We'll go to the line you're talking. Well, I guess we'll put a bookmark so we can come back to this position. But I immediately gave up on 94 because of this. But I think white is still fighting after this.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's not an easy end game to win.
Yeah, it's still. I mean, I don't know if he's winning but I think he's still fighting here after this. So anyway, yes, you're saying let's put the moves on the board. So you're mentioning in this position for white, the white should play what?
Um, yeah, let's say rookie 92.
92. Okay. Doesn't that still win material after this? Yeah, I think that still wins material for black after that because the bishop
True, yeah.
is X-string.
So wait, what was the move?
So I think I'm wondering if 94 might be one way
Oh,
for
I see
black.
what you're saying. Yeah, because yeah, like you said, we needed to sack. Yeah, I guess that is the only
Yeah.
move. But then now, okay, yeah, that's right. So then now, what if instead of rook c1, because that is a bit hard, maybe rook c. Nah, I don't want to play rook c6 because I want the bishop. So rook c4.
So for
Either
rook
way, though,
c4,
they're not be able to take
there's
this
knight
guy.
here.
Oh yeah.
That's one of the tricks of the position is that 94 is actually has a
I
concrete
saw it
threat.
earlier, and then I just brain fogged. I was so focused on my own plan.
So yeah,
So this doesn't
this
make
might
any
be.
sense at all that Thomas lost here. I mean, he could have flagged, but a player flagging in a classical game with 30-second bonus is very rare.
It's not as rare as you think, actually. Um, I think I might have seen Andy Hortolosa do that a couple of times,
Hmm.
where he'd lose on time in an increment game because he's so absorbed into the position. Um, so I've seen that happen. I think he did that once against me. Um, no, but this would be a tough one to navigate. I still think he could have tried pulling it. This, I think, the star move then must have been this maneuver 95. So here, there. And so this maneuver of 97, knight e5, followed by knight d3. And all of a sudden, white's position is looking, or he's feeling very dodgy.
Yeah, and even in the final position, Black was still obviously advantageous. He just had to stop the fork on f6.
F6, yeah.
Don't play rook c1 right away, but play probably even king g7. Keep the bishop where it's at,
So
and
here,
then
king g7.
you don't force it. White's position is a little too fragile, probably.
Yeah,
Probably something like f5, and once that knight moves, although then we get the knight to f2. Hmm.
yep.
Yeah, there's. Hmm.
It's not a trivial position. Okay, actually, if we're allowed to play f5, so say what random move should we play for white? Say we play, I don't know, h3.
Yeah.
Now, if f5 happens, the problem is, oh, it's actually still not working because the knight is covering this square.
Yeah, and that was my plan, but we don't have to play bishop a4, so I still think Eddie would take this one. Because white is just so stuck. I mean, what can we
Yeah,
try to even if we bring our king to e2, black's obviously still gonna play bishop a4 at some point. And we're fortunate that the queening square for our d pawn
happens
is
to
on
be,
c1, and then obviously
yeah,
we'll stop the c pawn for white because we'll need
yeah.
that because we need to move our bishop to a4 to win the game. So yeah, I think Eddie would have won this one anyways, but I guess we do have to assume that Tom is flagged.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think we've covered all the games. Well, most of the games, if not all. Let me check.
Yeah, all of them.
See
I
the
looked through the last one while you were gone. I wasn't sure whether we had covered it, but it was the Don Seacon versus Lucas. I know we had covered most
Okay.
of it, but there's that
Yes.
Rook End game. I don't know if we had seen this, but it was pretty smooth.
Yeah, I don't know if I think did we cover? Let me see. Yeah, I don't think I saw this. Yeah, I didn't see this. Nice. Yes. So Jessica was officially a meanie.
3 pawns is 3 pawns.
Yes.
Alrighty, so I'll quick before we end the stream, usual announcements. Check out the Castle Discord, linked in the YouTube description. Check out our sponsors, Chess Goals, and also Webeccentric. The Chess Goals is an opening website where you can just a lot of repertoires you can learn in under 100 lines. National Master Matt Jensen is the guy who leads that. And then Webeccentric is a business empowering small businesses through tailored digital solutions. You can read all about that in the description. And then the store is shop.webeccentric. And you can find all sorts of cool merch there. So with that said, we'll tune out for tonight and we'll see you all next week for round 3. Bye.